Hello everybody, this is Atul from IT Codes. Welcome back to the Angular tutorials. Today we are going to learn about Angular forms. Now in Angular, forms are created in two ways. One is template driven forms and the other is reactive forms. In this tutorial, we will be learning about template driven forms, how to create the template driven forms, how to use ngModel, ngModelgroup and ngForm directive inside it, give proper validations and display the validations meaningfully, as well as how to submit the form. So let's go into the code and learn how to prepare this Angular forms. Now we are back with the original code which we already created. Last we did the directive thing that is running already over here. Now for creating that form, first of all, we will install bootstrap inside our application, because bootstrap will give a richer look to our application. So for that we have to first install the bootstrap in our Angular application. So for that we will just say npm install bootstrap. This will install bootstrap in our application. So it is installed. Now you can just view where it is installed. You go in node modules. In node modules, you will be having at the bottom the newly installed modules. So over there, you should find bootstrap. So you can just go and see whether it is installed or not. So here it is. Now the path is bootstrap distribution in CSS. You can see all the CSS which is in bootstrap, the JS files of the bootstrap. Now to implement it inside this Angular project, it is already installed using npm, but we have to give the path. We have to give the path to the JS file, that is bootstrap.js, and the CSS file, that is bootstrap.css, inside our config file, that is in AngularJSON. In AngularJSON, in your script section, there is already a style sheet which is pre-built with it, and inside script section it is blank. So we have to put the path to the bootstrap CSS over here. So the bootstrap CSS path, you can just check whether where it is installed. So the folder is inside ng modules. So you have to give the full path. It says ng underscore modules and slash, you have bootstrap, and inside bootstrap you have dist, that is distribution, then css and bootstrap.css. So that's the path included to the CSS file. Same works over here for the script also. In script array, which is blank, we have to give the path to the JS file. So instead of CSS, it will be JS, and over here it will be bootstrap.js file. So this should allow you to use bootstrap tags, elements, and CSS inside your component files. So for creating our ng forms, that is Angular forms, we'll be creating a new component. So we say ng g component, and I'll give the name as template forms or template form. So this is generate a component named with template form. So it is over here. Now compile it again. Okay, it is compiled. Now I click and run the application. Okay, it is showing me the last component. In this app component, I'll just call app dash template form and save it. So this calls our newly created component over here. Now we can check whether the bootstrap is installed perfectly. So we go inside that component and remove the entire HTML over here. And we can try some bootstrap tags over here. So we can just type button over here. Button, and the class of bootstrap is btn dash primary. And yes, the bootstrap is loaded. This is the button from bootstrap class. So now we'll be creating the HTML over here. So for creating the form, we'll be using entirely bootstrap tags, so it looks prettier and a better with the CSS. So first div would be container. Inside container, we'll create a row. The tag will be div and class will be row. Inside row, we'll be creating a column. So instead of MD12, we'll be generating 6. Column is created. Now for creating the form, we start with the form tag. There won't be any action tag over here. Inside our form, to create the form in Bootstrap, there are classes as form group and form components, that is form controls. So we'll be creating the div as form group div. Inside that, it will be label. So label for, so we'll be creating a field as email. So it is label for email. Type here email. Then we create the component, actual component, that is the text box component. So input type equals to text. We give a class as form control. This is one form group created. Next, we will be needing the password, chain password, that is the password and the confirm password. And we give a placeholder over here. Enter email. We can just copy and paste the structure if you want, so it will be faster. Form group. The second text box is password. We give it a name as user password, that is u password. Over here, instead of text, it will be password. Class will be form control. We won't give a placeholder over here. Component is u confirm password. Third would be gender. So now for gender, you will be having a different class, that is div, and we give a class as group only. So we'll just say form group. Form group over here. Form group is done. Then we give a label. gender, we having a radio button over here. So input type equals to radio, name equals to gender, value we provide as male, and we write male outside. So this is one created, that is one text box created. The next would be female, and another would be buttons, that is one reset button and one submit button. So we'll keep it inside form group only. As button, now if we refresh and have a look, it looks something like this. Here I have to change this confirm password. This is not much aligned. So let us give some CSS more over here. Confirm password. Now over here, we go on adding some more classes to make it look much better. So say margin top equals to 3. That is container margin top 3. Then let's keep this entire thing inside card layout. So for that, we'll be just creating a card above the div things. Is div at the end. This is the card div. Give a card header. Give a text as a registration form over here. We'll be having a card body. The entire form is inside your card body. Just have a look. Okay, it's looking much better. Still, the gap is less between each and every component. So we'll be giving a gapping between the components. So for that in form group, we'll be giving the class as margin bottom 2, that is MB2. This has nothing to do with Angular. These are all classes of Bootstrap itself. It works same in any other languages also. Okay, we give is margin bottom 2, and inside your radio button, we'll be giving more classes to make it more better look. And these are all form controls. So over here we'll be giving the classes form dash check dash input, and we want to give space besides, so that is margin end equals to 2. Give the same class over here, and the same class over here, that is me dash 2. Now if you go and look, this looks much better. So the design of the entire form is mostly done. Now what we will be doing is, we will be giving properties and attributes to the text boxes for giving the validations and everything. So first and foremost, the important thing in any text box is we will be having two properties. That is, one is id, we give the id is email, and we also give the property name equals to email. So first we will be working on the email box, then we'll be jumping to any other boxes. So first and foremost thing, you have to give a reference name to this particular text box. This is the physical name of the text box, that is name and id. But for creating validations and binding with ngModel and everything, we have to specify one reference also. So for providing that reference, we will be giving the variable name. This is the reference variable name, which is defined by hash email equals to, we provide ngModel to it. Okay, we checked the form module is already here. Now for binding your text boxes by the directive ngModel, we already did it in our directive section. You observed we used to write ngModel over here. So now we have put ngModel for binding this text box to the model thing, that is ngModel directive, and over here we gave a reference variable, that is email, and we specified over here ngModel. So what does this do exactly, this hash thing? Now hash thing does what? Whatever is typed inside it, it is passed on to this particular value using ngModel. This variable is been treated by ngModel binding, and the value is treated in these boxes, that is this particular variable. And in this variable we can check using the validation, that is default validations of Angular. So for checking the default validations, we give over here as required first. So mark this as required. After giving this as required, we have to provide validations over here. Right now you can see the form is active and everything is done over here. There is no validation which is fired over here right now. We just provided required inside it, but we have to give specific error whether the person fills it or not. So for that we will be giving another div below the form group div, and that div section will be giving the if loop for checking, and that is ngIf directive that we did in the last lecture, that is ngIf. We denote is a star ng and if I capital. The condition first and foremost, we have to check that email inputted is not valid or valid. So we specify over here as email. Now this email is referring to this hash variable. So we say email dot invalid. This is the first condition we are checking. The second condition we have to check is email dot dirty, or we specify as email dot touched. Now what are these three checkings over here? first email dot invalid if something is entered which is invalid. Email dot dirty, that is changes are being done inside the text box. And touched, whether the user has touched that particular text box. Touch in the sense you have at least visited that text box. Your cursor has went inside your text box. That property is touched. Dirty, which is in changes, and invalid if something invalid input has been done. So this is the first loop we are giving, that is ng if. This will go inside if any of these things are being done. So over here, now we check for the required thing. So I specify again over here ng if, and this if is only for checking of the required validator. So over here I say email dot errors, and errors we are checking required, so we specify as dot required. We specify the class for the div. Now there is a class inbuilt inside your bootstrap for messaging and alert messages or error messages. So that class is alert, and alert dash danger, that will provide the red color. And I specify the messages email is required or email cannot be blank. So this is the error message which should be printed. Now you see over here it is giving required is giving an error. It is saying that property required comes from an index signature, so it must be accessed with required. Now we can do it with the square bracket also. Instead, to solve it, we can go inside your ts config file. There is a property over here, no property access from index signature is true. So we do it false over here. Now the error is gone. Now this question mark, why this question mark is over here? This will check whether it is set or not, that is same to ternary operator. If it is set, it will check it out. So we provide a question mark over here. So that is done over here. Now next we check whether the application is working or that particular condition which you have done is working. So go over here, go inside text box and check. You just observed I just went inside the text box. I just refresh again and see. I just went inside the text box, that my cursor goes inside email and I come back. So on coming back, it says email cannot be blank. So why and how this is firing? As I said, there are conditions over here. Email.dirty, if I type over there. Email.touch, I just go inside the text box. And invalid when you type an invalid input. So this is, it is not, it is invalid because the field is required over here and we didn't type anything. So when we go inside, it fires the touch, and touch will go inside here and it will check for that particular validation. If email dot errors equals to required, then show this message email cannot be blank. Now next kind of validation for email is the pattern kind of thing, which we already know that we should check it is a valid email or not. So this is the pattern. This is regular expression. Now this regular expression, right now I have copied it from the net and pasted over here. You can go on Google and you can search it. You will get the same validation. So this pattern we will be putting inside our email text box. So for that, after required, I just say give a pattern over here. So now there are two validations which are fired over here. One is required and one is pattern. But for pattern, we haven't written any other loop over here. So for that, I'll be giving one more div and I say ng if. Now the checking should be for the pattern. So email dot errors dot pattern. If the pattern is wrong, then it should show a particular message. So over here again the class should be same. That is, we specify as alert and alert danger. not in the email is not in valid format. We save it, refresh occurs, we check over here. Now over here when you go inside it and now I type something, as I type you can see the validation is fired, email is not in valid format. If I try and give a perfect email, that is at itcodes.com, this validation goes. So this validations occur perfectly. This is how we use ngModel for the model binding, that is directive binding. We repeat again and check what has been done, what things are to be done. First and foremost, provide ID and name. Second thing, we have to give a reference variable to the ngModel directive. We specify ngModel, so that will bind the values to it. And this is, remember, this is not two-way binding. For two-way binding, we used to give something like this. If you remember in the last lectures, this is two-way binding. We are not two-way binding over here. We are just binding the ngModel attribute, so it binds to that model. And now this value is traveled inside your email. We give required and pattern over here for checking the email address. So this is what is done in the text box. Now for displaying the error message in a proper way, we provide another div below the form group tag. Inside that we just check using the ngIf directive. We specify it in as ngIf email.invalid and email.dirty and email.touched. Touched is when you go inside it, dirty is when changes are occurring, invalid when you input an invalid thing. So this will check that whether it is required or not, if somebody has entered something, if he has just gone inside it and left the text box. So after this, this will go inside, and for the two validations, we'll again check individually that star ngIf, that is asterisk ngIf email.errors for required, you give this message, for pattern not matching, you give this message. This is how the validation, inbuilt validation of Angular are implemented using ngModel. Now for the password thing, one thing is that we can just check for the required and everything, but we want to go a little bit further. We want to compare these two text boxes, whether the value is same or not. So first and foremost, the same thing, we give id property over here, and the id property should be upassword, that is what I have specified over here, that is upassword. Name property also we specify as upassword, and now for this what we will be doing is we will be grouping these two text boxes, that is grouping of text boxes using ngModelgroup. But for that also, first we have to give the reference thing, that is we give a reference over here. The reference name also I give as the same name as which I give for the name and id property, upassword equals to ngModel. Outside also I give the directive as ngModel, and we specify as required. We go further and we give one other property also, that is maximum length equals to, supposingly I need the maximum length as 8 characters, so I specify 8. So in password what we want to do is we want that this password should match the confirm password, as well as it should be having the maximum length as 8. So what we did is we give the name upassword, id upassword, we give the ngModel directive, and we also give a reference, that is upassword, and we specified ngModel. We give the validations as required and maximum length equals to 8. Now here comes a little bit more addition for creating the group. For creating group, what we will be doing is we will be creating another div above the password text box, and inside that we will be giving the attribute as ngModel and we specify as ngModelgroup over here, right? In ngModelgroup, I give another name apart from the name of these two text boxes. Let's give this text box also name. So we complete this property also. Confirm you password, or we give as you confirm password. So it will be remaining same. The syntax should same. User confirm password, user confirm password. So the name properties are binded. Now over here I am not specifying as required or something, because we will be already checking that the particular password entered should be matching that particular top value. So for that we just bind it to ngModel and we specify as hash you confirm password equals to ngModel. Okay, and over here I don't give as required or something, because it will be matching over here. So now over here at the top where you specified the directive as ngModelgroup, we give a different name. So I give a name as password group, and we will be providing the same reference, that is hash password group equals to same thing ngModelgroup. So that specify over here. The div is completed. We cut it from here and give it back to this position. So you can observe that the two password boxes are inside a group that is named as password group. We give the reference name as hash password group, and we give as ng model group directive over here. So this will group this both text boxes. Now what we want to do is we want to check whether the user has entered the valid password as well as the values of both the text boxes should matching over here. So for that, below the second confirm password text box div, we give another div over here. Inside that div, we give the condition ng if, and inside ng if we'll be checking now on password group. So that will check both the boxes together. So I say equals to, and inside that I say password group dot invalid, that is first condition, or that is second condition, password group dot value. Now we compare both the values, that is the first value and the second value. Value dot u password, that is first text box, is not equal to password group dot value confirm password, that is you confirm password. Okay, so this is the checking, and as we have given the pipe sign, we can give the entire bracket inside over here. There is some error. Let me check again. There is some typing mistake, I guess. We checked as password group as invalid, password group dot value dot u password is not equal to this. There is some bracket error, I guess. Let me give the another condition first. That is okay. Then over here. And I specify as another condition, that is if password group is touched. So that is the same condition which we gave for the about text box. Password group dot touched. If this is done, then we specify an error. So let's give the class over here. Class equals to alert and alert dash danger. So this is the checking for the group. Now we have to check individual over here also. Again, same thing, that we have to check for whether the passwords are not matching or the password entered is invalid. Invalid means the characters are less than 8 or something. So for that, we will be creating another div inside it, as we did for the email box also. So here we create that thing, and I give as ng if condition again, and in ng if we'll be specifying as password group dot invalid. We specified that condition. Now we have to give an else over here. If it is invalid, we'll be showing some message. So over here, supposing that I complete over here, and I just say password needs to be at least 8 characters. This is one checking. Next we want to do is we have to check for that matching thing, this particular condition which you have given over here. So we'll be using the else, ng if and else directive inside it. So for using else, I'll be giving a termination over here and then say else. Now remember, in our previous lectures what we did is, if else condition has to be satisfied, then we have to give a position where the error message has to be printed. So for that, we will be creating an ng template over here, ng template, and inside I will be giving a reference. A reference is not match supposingly, or no match, and I give the messages passwords password and confirm password does not match. This is the template which has to be called if this condition is not satisfied. So for that we will just say else, and after else we will give the reference of ng template. So over here, no match. So this should work, I guess. What we have specified is, in ng if we gave as password group, that is the group component of each and both the text boxes, so it is not invalid, or password group dot value u password, that is the first text box, is not equal to password group dot value dot u confirm password, that is the second text box. So if this is not satisfied, in any case, first is invalid, so for that invalid we are giving messages password needs to be at least 8 characters. So it will check this condition, that is minimum length equals to 8, that is maximum, sorry, minimum length. We just checked over here, minimum length property should be minimum length, so minimum length should be 8 over here. And if this does not match, we write an else condition over here. In else condition we are specifying as password is invalid, else it should jump to no match. No match is an ng template. Over here it says password and confirm password does not match. So this should work. We go over here, email, it gives you an error. I type a perfect email, atul@itcourse.com. Now, as I jump to the password, it again says password needs to be 8 characters, so our first validation is firing. If I type this much, it won't go. If I type as 8, so I just type. Now it is saying password and confirm password does not match. Why? Because confirm password is not having any value. So if I type some another value, then also it will give you an error. If I type the same password which I typed above, and it should go. Let me check, there is some error going on. Let me check. Let's just check the spellings. Over here there is a mistake. Confirm. We again check. It works. Now for the gender thing, we keep one value as selected already. So we just say as checked over here property. So at least one comes checked, nothing else. We also give ngModel over here because the binding has to be done at least. So ngModel, and we give a hash name as hash gender equals to ngModel. Now as they are grouped boxes, we have to give the same property over here. We don't give checked over here, so the next text box won't be checked over here. Now these are all validations done. Wait, the properties checked is not been implemented. Let me check it over here. Input type radio, and we give the property as checked over here. So that text box should come checked. That is that radio button. Sorry. Okay. Now that's checked over here. Now we haven't disabled this button. This was active all the time, whether the passwords are okay or not. This validation was firing, but still we could submit the form. So for preventing that particular submission, what we have to do is in the submit, what we have to do is we have to bind the property. There is one property which we learned during the property binding lecture also. That is, there was a property known as disabled. We give the condition as not, but for that, first and foremost, as we gave references to each and everything over here, you can see for each and everything we have given a reference over here. Same way for the entire form also we have to give a reference variable. So that reference variable will be, I will be giving as registration form. Now that registration form equals to, will be giving the property that is directive ng form. So now we can give reference to this form. So this registration form we give the condition as not registration form dot valid, then keep it disabled. So you can see it is not clickable now. So that box has been disabled over here, that is submit button. Now till I don't feel perfect values over here or my validation does not go okay, this won't be enabled. so any person won't be able to submit that particular form. So that is done by property binding over here, that we binded the property disabled over here with the reference variable, that is registration form dot valid over here, and that is done. Now the part how to get the value inside your TS file. So inside your TS file, go there and we just create a function over here. We give a function over here, we name it as on submit, and we give a parameter ng form. Okay, it is showing in place at declaration, we can just say any. The function is declared. Now we have to call that function from here, that is on submit. So that will go inside this. Over here we'll be just specifying as ng submit equals to, we call this function, that is on submit, and it is taking the form name as the parameter. Now as we have given the reference over here, we can give the same reference over here. So now this should be a complete form. The form is declared over here. Now to check it, we just open over here console, and inside the code we just type console.log. We just print the value right now, ng form dot value. So this will print the values which are been inside the form. Now over here we type the values. The value is a male, and I say submit. Now we can see the value has been submitted in that function, and you get the values in an array, that is email. And for password we have created group, so inside group you will be getting this confirm password and password. So this is how you create your template driven form with validations using your bootstrap template. If you don't use bootstrap, then you can give your own classes also, but in bootstrap we get classes for alert messages and everything, so we define it very easily over here to design the particular form. Or else you can go for your custom CSS, you can write the custom CSS inside your CSS file and implement it over here. So this was all about creating the template driven form. A quick summary what we did actually, we first install Angular inside using npm install, we install bootstrap, that is npm install and bootstrap. For adding bootstrap to your application, we added it inside the ts config, the Angular config file. In Angular config file we added it inside the script section as well as the style section. So that is angular.json, you remember this. So for adding bootstrap, once you install bootstrap in your application, you have to add this particular two paths, that is node modules, bootstrap distribution CSS and bootstrap CSS, as well as the JS file. Now you can use bootstrap easily in your application. We created the form using the bootstrap classes over here. For binding the text boxes, what each text box should have is, it should have a name property, it should have the ngModel binding, the validations which you want to do, that is over here we did required in pattern. So you specify the validation, that is normal validation, which you do in HTML5, it is same. Over here one thing extra, that is we give a hash reference. This is the most important thing, because this hash reference will allow you to bind the ngModel value inside this particular variable. So now this variable will be containing the typed text. So we check this particular variable over here by giving the ngif directive. In ngif directive we say ngif email dot invalid and email dot dirty, that is it is changed, it is invalid input, or it is touched, that is you just go inside the text box and come out. Then we check the individual errors. First is for required, second is for the pattern. Inside also we will run the ng if directive, and inside that we give the alert danger class. So let me print that particular thing. So whether this is email box, supposing it is an F name or L name or anything, you can just check required over here, or whatever messages or errors you can check. For password, we just did one thing more, that is we use the ng model group over here, that is ng model group, and we give a group name to it. So for checking these two text boxes, we just used the group variable, that is reference variable, password group. We gave in the checking as password group dot invalid, or the password group value of first text box does not match password group dot value and second text box, and it is touched, that is the person has gone inside. Then you alert this particular message. Now for disabling the text box, if these things are not valid, the text box should not be enabled. So user cannot press the text box or click that click the button to submit the particular form. So for disabling the button, we use the property binding over here, that is disable property. We use property binding by square boxes that we did already in the property binding lecture, and in that we specify as registration form dot valid. Now this registration form is also the name variable that is over here, which we have given over here. It is known as the reference variable. Registration form is valid. So till it is not valid, this won't be active. For submitting the form, we use this function which has been defined inside it. We write a function. This function name can be anything. I have just given the name as on submit, and you have to pass the parameter as ng form. So over here you have to call this particular event, that is ng submit. Ng submit should call on submit, and the form name is passed over here. So by doing this, you can get the value inside your console. Right now we are not processing it anything over here. So for that, you just type the particular box and I say submit, and the value will be printed over here. So this was all about the template driven forms. In the next lecture, we'll be learning about reactive forms. So that will be the complete for Angular forms. Thank you for watching.